Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing the Oblivion Remaster, and what we're doing today is going to be what is probably going to be a pretty short video, but I wanted to go through and rank all of the different guilds in Oblivion. And so this isn't going to really be all that different from the actual game. You know, we are talking about the remaster, but the guilds' experiences, at least from what I've seen so far in this game, are pretty much the same. You know, it's all updated a little bit, but the guilds still feel like they did, 20 years ago when the game first came out. So we're going to be doing two things. I'm going to be ranking them, and there are only 5 of them in Oblivion, so that won't take very long. But then after that, I will, well, not after that, but during that, I will also kind of be comparing them to their Skyrim counterparts, just for anyone out there who is not super familiar with Oblivion, or who is more familiar with Skyrim, so it should help with that. So, this is going to be mostly opinionated, but I feel like most of what I'm saying should be something that, if you're experienced in it, you'll probably agree with. So, let's just dive on into it. So starting us off at number 5, which is, of course, the worst one, considering there are only 5, and, we're starting at the worst one. But anyway, it's the Arena. And so this one is a gladiatorial wave-based combat type thing. So it's very loosely described as a guild. There's not a whole lot of story there, not a whole lot of meaning behind it, really. It's just how long can, well, not even how long can you survive, but can you beat each wave of enemies? And if you can, it's not a bad thing to do. So I'm ranking it at the lowest just because there's no story or anything behind it, but it's also not a bad experience. It's fun, you're fighting, and the combat in the game is fun enough, so it's enjoyable enough. Plus, there are benefits. You can make a pretty serious amount of gold and quite a bit of combat XP by doing the Arena. So, for those reasons, I definitely recommend doing it, and it's one that I always like to do right away, but not really any narrative to it, only one memorable NPC as a whole. And once you get to be the grand champion, that's pretty much it. That's the whole experience. So, worth doing, enjoyable enough, especially for, like I said, the gold and the XP, but not all that great. Pretty bare bones, especially considering we're playing a narrative-driven RPG. So, that's why the Arena goes at number 5. And as far as a Skyrim comparison, there really isn't one. Skyrim does not have any equivalent at all to the Arena. And so that one's going to be the easiest one to discuss. So it's at number 5 in this game, and in Skyrim it doesn't exist. So let's move on to number 4. At number 4 we have the Mage's Guild. So as far as pros for the Mage's Guild, you get access to every spell vendor plus the Arcane University, and you can even get access to custom spell making, and there are pretty sweet item recharge altars that you can get access to by doing the Mage's Guild storyline. So if you're planning a magical playthrough, if nothing else, just the gameplay advantages of doing the Mage's Guild playthrough as early as possible definitely makes sense. So there's that. The story itself is, of course, it's there, so it's not like the Arena where just it doesn't exist at all, but it's fairly bare bones, and again, it doesn't compare extremely favorably to the better guilds on this list. So again, if you're doing a magic-based playthrough, I recommend doing it for gameplay reasons, but if not, it's definitely the one that I would consider the most skippable. There is a narrative, but the storyline is fairly forgettable. Like, even if you have played Oblivion in the past, I would forgive you for forgetting exactly what the Mage's Guild storyline is, just because it's not that great. It's also fairly anticlimactic, so not a lot of standout NPCs, nothing too memorable, story's pretty lame. It's mostly about the gameplay benefits if you're planning to play as a mage. So that's the reason I put Mage's Guild at number 4, even though there are some obvious perks of doing it. Then how does it compare to Skyrim? Well, kind of similar, actually. The Skyrim Mage's Guild is possibly the second lamest guild, in my opinion, in Skyrim. I know a lot of people like the Bard's College. I have never been a fan. I only actually did the Bard's College once out of the 24 Skyrim playthroughs I did, because it's just absolutely not important for gameplay, the story's not interesting, and you don't really gain anything from it. But other than that, the Mage's Guild is easily the worst guild in Skyrim. You can complete the entire Mage's Guild quest in Skyrim having only ever cast a single spell, because all you have to do is the spell at the very beginning, the Lesser Ward, showing that you can block basic damage spells. And then you can do the entire rest of the Mage's Guild storyline wearing heavy armor and wielding a sword. It's an extremely lame storyline, and you can become the archmage of the mages of the College of Winterhold, not being able to do any serious magic. So it's really bad in Skyrim. Obviously, Oblivion's is better than that, because at least it is focused around you actually having to get better at magic and do that, and or at least maybe not have to, but it's definitely the way that it's intended to be played. But still, like I said, number 4 feels fair for this one because it's definitely forgettable and very easily skippable to, and still have a solid experience in Oblivion. So that's why it goes at number 4. Now, moving on to number 3, we have the Fighters Guild. And now we're getting into ones that I actually consider quite fun. So from here on out, all the guilds are definitely ones that I recommend you do. The Fighters Guild is a very solid experience. So you are going to be doing contracts in it, and they're going to be mixed different types. So sometimes it'll be basic killing some goblins, and other times you're going to be rescuing notable nobles. So it definitely feels like a more balanced experience that progresses as you get deeper into it. As far as gameplay advantages, there are some pretty solid rewards, including pretty good gold rewards for some of the quests, especially considering you can do this relatively early in the game and it still feels like a pretty solid balanced experience. There are free followers that you can get. Some of them are pretty solid followers, and that goes along with access to some pretty decent armor and different skill trainers that you can access. And the rival Blackwood Company plotline that you can experience through the Fighters Guild is interesting. I definitely enjoy it. It's one of the better written side stories in Oblivion, in my opinion. It doesn't really have a lot of downsides. I guess you could say that maybe it feels a little bit organic, like the rewards aren't super specific, unique items or giant gold rewards. It's just, you know, pretty solid gold rewards and pretty solid generic armor and weapons and stuff like that. So overall, like I said, it's an experience that I never skip out on, and I definitely don't recommend. As far as a Skyrim comparison, there's no Fighters Guild in Skyrim, but there is the companions. So it's basically the same type of thing. You know, you go out on missions with various different companions or, you know, followers, and they will range from killing some rats to recovering shards of Wuthrad and stuff like that. It's pretty much the same, except for I'd say the Fighters Guild is better in pretty much every way. All the characters are more interesting. The storyline / missions are more interesting. Their rewards are better. It's overall, the Fighters Guild is a lot better than the companions. And so I rank it at number 3 for the Oblivion Remaster, and I definitely recommend that you check it out and do it. Moving on to number 2, we've got one that I absolutely love. It's not as good as number 1, obviously, but it is a very solid experience, and that is the Thieves Guild. So, perks on this one are pretty big from both a gameplay and storyline perspective. So basically, as you level up through it, the way that you'll progress is by doing independent thievery, which is a better system than Skyrim. We'll get to that, but I like it. Basically, you just go around, and as long as you're not stealing from the guild, or I should say as long as you're not getting caught stealing from the guild, you just have to steal and fence different items in the game. So as long as you're fencing stolen items, progressing up in the value of them, you will be able to progress through the Thieves Guild storyline, because every time you hit a new threshold for that, you'll then have access to a unique storyline. And those stories, or the unique Thieves Guild missions, I should say, progress up in levels of complexity. Typically, it's stealing some sort of a high value or unique item from someone. Sometimes it's framing people, you know, whatever. It's all Thieves Guild type stuff. But they're all pretty enjoyable if you enjoy the stealth / thievery type gameplay. Outside of that, you can definitely make a lot of gold playing in the Thieves Guild. So from a gameplay perspective, I like doing it early for that reason, because it helps with that early game lack of gold problem. And it does culminate in a pretty exciting quest, the ultimate heist at the end of all of the little micro heists that you do throughout the story. It opens up a fencing network, so you'll have various different people where you can sell stolen goods to. So if you plan on stealing stuff and you want to be able to sell it, it's essential for that. The narrative is very interesting. I won't spoil it, but the Guildmaster might not be what he seems. But the storyline is definitely interesting, which is something we can't really say about a lot of the other guilds in this game, or other Bethesda games. The only real downside of it, I guess there's 2 downsides to the Thieves Guild. If you're a pure combat-based playthrough and build, you're not going to get much out of it because you're explicitly not supposed to engage in combat in these missions. If you kill anyone while doing any Thieves Guild missions, you'll have to basically pay a bribe to the Thieves Guild for them to forgive you for it. They do not want you killing people, so you're not going to get a lot of combat out of it. Outside of that, the early jobs where, like I said, you're independently thieving, that might seem grindy, but in my opinion, it goes along pretty quick. If you know what to look for, make sure you're only stealing high-value items. It does not take long, and it doesn't ever feel grindy, in my opinion. But yeah, the Thieves Guild in Oblivion goes at number 2. Comparing that to Skyrim, the Thieves Guild is my favorite guild in Skyrim. It's the one where I feel like you're actually doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing in that guild, whereas, like I said, with the Mage's Guild, you could just be a warrior swinging a sword the whole time. You don't actually need to be a mage. The Thieves Guild is very good in Skyrim, and it's also very good in Oblivion, so comparatively, I'd say they're similar. Like I said, in Skyrim, the Thieves Guild is my number 1, with a close second being the one that's a number 1 in Oblivion. So, moving on to number 1, we of course have the Dark Brotherhood, and this shouldn't be surprising for anyone who's played Oblivion, because the Dark Brotherhood is a fantastic quest line. The rewards are cool, the NPCs are some of the most memorable in the game, and really it's mostly about the story, because it's pretty cool stuff overall, but the story is so much fun for the Dark Brotherhood in Oblivion. So, like I said, it's easily the most gripping quest line. You get examples of betrayals, twists, turns, and of course, the ultimate quote-unquote purification. I won't spoil anything here, of course. Like I said, memorable NPCs like Lucian and Vicente, and of course, top-tier loot that you can get through this one. Some pretty solid weapons and armor and different types of enchanted things that are great for, I guess, if you're playing a stealthy type assassin playthrough. As far as, like, a weakness, I guess if you're playing as a morally upright character and you don't want to be a murdering assassin that kills people that are arguably possibly innocent, then yeah, you're probably not going to like the Dark Brotherhood. But other than that, there's nothing to complain about. It's got great loot, great XP gains, great opportunities to make decent amounts of money, and the story's super entertaining. So I love the Dark Brotherhood in Oblivion. It's easily the best one. And comparing it to Skyrim, the Dark Brotherhood is the runner-up in Skyrim. So like I said, they flip-flop here. In my opinion, in Oblivion, the Dark Brotherhood's the best and the Thieves Guild is the second best, whereas in Skyrim, the Thieves Guild is the best and the Dark Brotherhood is the second best. But in Skyrim, most people who have played it will remember that the Dark Brotherhood was a fairly memorable experience. I think they stumble a little bit on the narrative end, but the gameplay is still a lot of fun because the stealth assassin type gameplay is very fun. That being said, in Skyrim, the Dark Brotherhood does have one of the most entertaining side quests, but it's so contrary to how I like to play Oblivion, because I play Oblivion for the Emperor, as everyone, who has played Oblivion should know. Whereas the Dark Brotherhood in Skyrim can do something very anti the Emperor. But overall, very solid experience in both games. I just think it's the best guild in Oblivion, and the Oblivion Remaster is no different. So that is all for today's video. I feel like I got a little yappy with this one, but I love the side content in Oblivion. It was the thing I was most looking forward to re-experiencing when the Oblivion Remaster shadow dropped. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you gained something from it, even if that's just entertainment value or a way to spend a couple minutes of your time. I would love to hear your rankings. I always love hearing how other people feel about these different guilds, especially for a game like this that's so old and has had so long for people to develop very strong opinions about it. But, in any case, that's all for today. If you have any other video recommendations you'd like to see for Oblivion, let me know in the comment section. But that's all for today. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you like this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.